The truth was we were both completely head over heels in love with each other. Now it was a bit more official. I think the biggest thing I realized with my family was how truly enamored I was with Danielle. My parents made sure to point that out embarrassingly. I felt they approved of my relationship. I even for the first time received open support for my orgonite and medical marijuana careers. They gave me an amazing mold for my orgonite in the shape of a marijuana leaf. I couldn't believe it after years of ridicule, showing me everyone has the power to change, even if it isn't as fast as we may hope. I couldn't escape the change that entered my life. Inescapable. Was this it? Were we both waiting for each other? After 3 weeks, our lives were becoming entirely intertwined. Life just flowed effortlessly, and we were perfect together. Everyone around town thought we were adorable, and we brought smiles to many we encountered. We genuinely had fun together. I loved everything about her. What happened next only made sense. I decided to ask her if she thought we should get married. It wasn't an immediate proposal, but more of an idea. Danielle was so excited that I wanted a secure future together, she practically said yes right away. And with that, we were going to get married. We both knew we loved one another, and it felt right. We were on a rocket ship relationship, and we were past the point of no return. I can't explain how we fit so much life experience into such a small amount of time. One of the biggest hurdles being a huge shift in my line of work, which without her help, I would have never come to such deep realizations. A big life change was still a small part of the events that propelled us those first couple weeks. The deep discussions around our lives continued, showing us new and interesting challenges. Most problems or issues from a new relationship happened. We discussed living situations, children, life goals, aspirations, and even looking at the things that we didn't like about ourselves and each other. We worked through a lot of it with such beauty. We understood how to communicate with each other. It was beautiful. We both agreed that we had lived a lifetime in our first month together. Most relationships take months, if not years, to progress as far as we already did. So now we had to discuss the details of making it official. Our planned wedding day was fast approaching, and we spent practically every minute possible together. She would even come to hang out at my work, which brought me to Sedona in the first place. At the time, I was working at the local medical marijuana dispensary. It was my second time back in the industry, which I enjoyed. I loved getting paid to sell weed legally. Moving to Sedona was a massive improvement to my previous job in downtown Tucson. The views from inside the new office were magnificent. The people were even more pleasant. I felt at home when I first arrived. I have researched the most successful dispensaries in the nation, the ones that are providing free wellness center options to their patients. These include yoga classes, acupuncture, healthy eating seminars, and so much more. I saw potential in Sedona to provide those benefits. The location had a perfect space that was being completely unused. It felt like an opportunity, but I would find the opposite to be true. Due to a problem I had with a coworker, I had to inform the manager that at the time I felt a coworker was mistreating clients based on if they tipped out or not. Seemed like the proper thing to do since I take a lot of pride in customer service. The result was not punishing the employee, but removing the tip jar completely. I hadn't realized the jar was gone the next time we worked together. I had volunteered to work the front desk, so I never noticed it was missing the entire day. I was only trying to avoid talking to her. Danielle showed up an hour before closing to hang out with me. It wasn't until I walked out the door that I realized there wasn't a tip jar. I wanted to blow up. I was beyond upset, mostly because it was a $250 to $400 per month pay reduction. I was at the time making $11 per hour, which was $2 short of the originally promised $13 per hour. I hadn't worried before since the tip jar would usually make up the difference. The pay cut made me furious. Danielle was with me as this happened, and it was the first time she saw me angry. Now at the time in my life, I would say I still lacked control of my anger. Often my temper could get the better of me, and I would not be my usual pleasant self. She was able to see me at my worst, emotionally out of control. Everything that I was hoping to get from working there was crumbling to nothing. I wasn't going to be making near enough money now to accomplish half of what I wanted to accomplish with my life. It was devastating. Danielle helped me to come to several realizations. I realized that upper management only cared about trying to supply inexpensive marijuana. The idea of an integrated wellness center was never going to manifest at this job. Danielle helped me to work through all of it, and she helped me to come to some big decisions. Now I wasn't making enough money to thrive in Sedona at $11 per hour. I was barely getting by before. Danielle reminded me of this and other issues that bothered me. I felt the managers that worked over me had zero say in the direction of the company. They received all direction from our Phoenix office that also rarely showed up to our location. We did only $1 million a year in business compared to the over $12 million that the Phoenix location did. The company didn't show much care or attention to our location. It bothered me that my manager would communicate the lack of concern that the home office had for our issues. I could see the focus was not on the patients. The concerns were focused on the profits for the company, not in providing proper medicine. Never was it about giving back to the community or the employees for that matter. With my wife taking me through everything, I concluded I needed to quit. The next day I was super surprised to see my general manager working. He was filling in for the assistant manager for the day. It was perfect synchronicity because I needed to talk to him about what happened. He gave me the worst reason to why he thought it was pertinent to remove the tip jar. He decided that since the other locations didn't have tip jars, he would remove it to stop the problem. I proceeded to ask about getting $13 an hour as originally promised. He then told me the assistant manager only gets $13 an hour. The option of a promotion to a manager just meant that I would officially get paid what I did with the tip jar. That was all I needed to hear. I was looking forward to less money than I was making with tips while having more work and responsibility. I was not interested. Honestly, I couldn't believe that managers at a business that grosses over $1 million a year in sales on a plant that our company grows only pay their top managers $28,000 to $34,000 per year. It was embarrassing, and I couldn't take pride in the job anymore. I put in my month's notice because someone needed to be retrained to work there. I still took pride in my performance as an employee. At the time, I was very knowledgeable about how to help most people with managing pain, sleep, anxiety, and many of the other problems that MMJ can remedy. One of the biggest being the constant influx of cancer patients looking for relief from many of the side effects of chemo. I told Danielle it was an eye-opening experience to see every week the new cancer patients that the cancer industry failed. It is hard because many of those people were struggling so much, but it felt good when I could help a patient find the proper medicine for their problem. It isn't rocket science, but there is a science to it. Since I started in the industry in 2012, Arizona has seen huge leaps in the quality of medicine available, but it still needs more development to see the plant fully utilized. With my revelation that it wasn't time for me to continue working in the MMJ industry, I knew I needed a change. Considering my soon-to-be wife was also a local dance teacher, and we had already discussed silly rumors that small towns like to spread, it just seemed right that I move on. She was very outspoken to her students about staying away from drugs, considering she didn't do them. She walked the talk, and she took great pride in that. She thought it was okay to be pure, even when everyone else was doing the opposite. It's okay to stand out and do what's right, especially if it's for yourself. Standing up for yourself is not always easy when one doesn't have a foundation to stand on. I was shifting Danielle's perspective of marijuana used medicinally. We both still feel recreational abuse, as with all intoxicants, is harmful to many people's lives. Danielle helped girls build that foundation, being a role model we could all aspire to achieve. She changed many lives in her mission to keep kids safe. As much as I was teaching her about the things I understood, she was sharing with me far more about the wisdom she possessed. When I said Danielle read my astrological birth chart on my birthday, I had no idea the level of her understanding of astrology. She understood unreservedly how the planets could affect people. When my parents were visiting, she practically nailed my mom and dad's personality just by reading their birth charts. I also found out that when she read my sisters, that she saw a lot of the struggle that she and I had throughout our lives. Danielle would also read charts for birthdays, for special events, and even in the event of a death. She let the stars guide her, which was no surprise when it came to choosing a wedding day. My wife wanted to choose a day that was right according to the stars, an auspicious day, one that she felt she could get married. We had a couple of limitations because of her teaching schedule and my work week. We decided that a Friday would be the best day of the week to get married. After referring to next month's star charts, we decided to choose the date Friday, September 18th, 2015. The stars told Danielle that this was the most auspicious, and it was only 2 weeks away. The first thing I had to do was switch shifts so that I could have the weekend following our wedding off. Switching shifts meant my work weeks would run back to back instead of having a break in the middle. That meant I had to work 7 days straight to return to my 4-day on 3 days off schedule. But I knew it was worth it. My requests for days off came halfway through my final month of work. Regardless of the issues I was having with work, the idea of getting married made it worth any price I would have to pay. Danielle and I were having such a great time that nothing else mattered. Every day our friendship deepened and the knowledge of each other continued to grow. We evolved in part because she saw a big reflection for herself in my anger. Danielle had far more experience and lessons to teach me about anger. She understood me and I understood her. We were both reflections of the deep anger that existed inside both of us. Not that we let the anger rule our lives. In fact, our love kept most of those feelings far away from both of our minds and hearts. We lived in a bubble of love, and only when opportunities for growth occurred would anything that could be conceived as not loving enter our world. So interesting things did happen often, but it wasn't anything the two of us together couldn't conquer. It is overcoming those challenges that made both of us stronger and closer. The next thing we needed to figure out was what was going to happen to her school. To Danielle, her house and the dance school were her main concern, and rightfully so. Obviously, after 3 weeks, I wasn't expecting her to split everything she had accomplished and worked hard for her entire life. It caused her much concern to think the potential risks she ran if things didn't work out. so we decided to sign a prenuptial. I would get nothing in the slight chance that we were too hasty. We agreed to keep things separate, which made her feel secure, so it made me feel good too. Possessions don't overly concern me. I appreciate nice things, but I prefer living a simple life. We had a couple of serious decisions to make. First off, we had decided that our marriage wasn't something we wanted to announce or make public. We wanted it to be about us, and we didn't want our family saying anything about it. Danielle and I decided to tell no one except some friends, mostly just friends that we encountered since we couldn't keep our mouths shut. However, there were certain people she didn't want to know yet, solely to avoid a large wedding. Deciding who should and shouldn't come was by default almost entirely up to Danielle. We told the dance class first, so all the girls knew right away that we were getting married. Since they all had hoped Danielle would get married one day, Danielle decided that they should be able to come. Miss Danielle was getting married, and it was a big deal for a lot of the girls. They decided they were going to perform a special dance for us at the wedding. It was all finally decided. Our wedding would be small and beautiful with a non-denominational minister performing the service. The only thing that was missing was my actual proposal. It just so happened that I came across the most beautiful heart-shaped crystal I'd ever seen a couple of days after our big decision. Seeing as we weren't doing things the traditional way, I decided to change it up a little. I chose to give my wife the most beautiful heart-shaped stone I had ever seen. Obviously, when I presented it to her in the dance studio on one knee, I already knew the answer, but I also knew that it was going to be beyond official. Danielle, Claire, and Brandon Strabela were engaged, and we were going to get married on September 18th, 2015.